Human anatomy and physiology. The cells, tissues and organization of the body. Cells are the smallest functional unit of the body. They are grouped together to form tissues, each of which has a specified function, e.g., blood, muscles, bone. Different tissues are grouped together to form organs, e.g., heart, stomach, brain. Organs are grouped together to form systems, each of which perform particular function. A cell consists of a plasma membrane inside which there are a number of organelles present in a watery fluid called cytoplasm. Organelles are small structures with highly specialized functions, confined within a membrane. These include the nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi bodies, lysosomes, etc. Nucleus is vital center of the cell. It controls both chemical reactions and reproduction of cell. Mitochondria is the energy house of cell. Morphologically it appears like filamentous structure or rod-shaped. It consists of oxidative enzymes which converts chemical energy of the nutrients into the form of ATP. The energy is available for cellular activity. Golgi bodies act as a sort of intracellular pump that regulates the movement of fluid in the cell and expulsion of secretory products, polysaccharide part of glucoprotein secretion. Ribosomes are small dense opaque particles. They are composed of ribonucleic acid and protein. They are intracellular sites for protein synthesis. Endoplasmic reticulum is a complicated network of tubules and vesicles. These are of two types depending upon the presence or absence of ribosomes. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum are without the presence of ribosomes. The other one is the rough endoplasmic reticulum with the presence of ribosomes. Lysosomes are minute structures containing enzymes that digest or remove the useless or harmful particles. Tissues of the body are broadly classified into following types. 1. Epithelial tissues. 2. Connective tissues. 3. Muscular tissues. 4. Nervous tissues. Each type of tissue is further classified into following types. Epithelial tissues are two types. 1. Simple epithelial tissue. 2. Compound epithelial tissue. Simple epithelial tissue are four types. 1. Squamous epithelium. 2. Columnar epithelium. 3. Cuboidal epithelium. 4. Ciliated epithelium. Compound epithelial tissue are four types. 1. Transitional epithelium. 2. Stratified squamous conified epithelium. 3. Stratified squamous non-comified epithelium. 4. Stratified columnar epithelium. Connective tissue. 1. Areolar connective tissue. 2. White fibrous tissue. 3. Yellow clastic tissue. 4. Adipose tissue. 5. Lymphoid tissue. 6. Reticular tissue. 7. Cartilage. 8. Bone. 9. Blood. 10. Lymph. Muscular tissue. 1. Skeletal tissue. 2. Visceral tissue. 3. Cardiac tissue. Nervous tissue. 1. Myelinated nerve fiber. 2. Non-myelinated nerve fiber. Blood. Blood is a connective tissue, constitute about 7% of the body weight, about 5.6 liter in a 70 kg man. This proportion is less in women and considerably greater in children, gradually decreasing until the adult level is reached. The blood performs following function in a body. 1. Transport of oxygen. Hemoglobin, red pigment act as oxygen carrier. 2. Transport of CO2. 3. Transport of nutrients. Digested food materials like glucose, amino acids, fatty acids etc. are carried by blood to various organs of the body. 4. Body temperature regulation. Due to its flow throughout the body, it regulates the body temperature. 5. Transport of excretory products. Nitrogenous wastes like ammonia, urea etc. are transported to the kidneys from where they are eliminated. 6. Maintenance of pH. 7. Prevention from diseases. The WBC of blood engulf bacteria and other disease-producing microbes by phagocytosis. 8. Wound healing. Blood transport the necessary material required for the heating of wounds. 9. Chemical coordination. Blood transport various hormones and other chemicals from one region to another region. Blood is composed of a straw-colored transparent fluid, plasma, in which different types of cells, erythrocytes, leukocytes, platelets, are suspended. Erythrocyte or red blood corpuscles, RBC, are large, biconcave disc-like structure without a nucleus. It contain hemoglobin which act as a oxygen carrier. Their number is approximately 5-6 millions q-mm of blood. RBC are manufactured in tissues called hemopoietic tissues and the process of their formulation is called hemopoiesis. The old and worn-out erythrocytes are destroyed by the liver and spleen. The average lifespan of an RBC in about 120 days. Leukocytes or white blood corpuscles, WBC, are large nucleated colorless cells. They have a comparatively shorter life and contain no hemoglobin. Their number is about 8,000 q-mm of blood. These are of the following two types. A. Granulocytes. They have granular cytoplasm, basophils, acidophils, neutrophils. B. Agranulocytes. They have clear cytoplasm, lymphocytes, monocyte. Blood platelets. They are small non-nucleated round or oval, biconvex disc having various sizes and covered by unit membrane some granule. Their number is about 2,50,000 to 3.00.000 Q of blood. They help in coagulation of blood. The blood circulatory system. The blood circulatory system consists of the heart which act as a pump, and the blood vessels through which the blood circulates. Blood is transported to the lungs, pulmonary circulation, where oxygen is absorbed and carbon dioxide released, and rest of body where it supplies oxygen and nutrient to the cells and remove waste product. The digestive system. The digestive system is the collective name used to describe the alimentary canal, some accessory organs and a variety of digestive processes which take place at different levels in the canal to prepare food eaten in the diet for absorption. The alimentary canal begins at the mouth, passes through the thorax, abdomen and pelvis and ends at the anus. The complex of digestive processes gradually simplifies the food eaten until they are in a form suitable for absorption. Complex food material releases its constituent nutrients, amino acids, mineral salt, fat and vitamins after going under a series of changes. Enzymes which affect these changes are secreted into the canal by specified glands, some of which are in the walls of the canal and some outside the canal, but these are transferred through diet. Basically, it consists of alimentary canal, which is a long tube, 8-10 meters in length, through which food passes. It starts at mouth and terminates in anus. It comprises mouth, pharynx, esophagus, small intestine, large intestine, anal canal, accessory organs. These accessory organs produce some secretion, helpful in digestion, and their secretion pass through duct to enter the tract. These consist of salivary glands, pancreas, liver and biliary tract. Mouth. It is the first enlarged part of the tract. It opens externally through upper and lower lips. The cavity's dome-shaped roof is called the palate. The palate is divided into anterior hard palate and posterior soft palate. This make an arch with uvula hanging behind centrally. Pharyngeal tonsils are present on either side. Tongue. It is a muscular structure present at the base of the mouth with 2/3 lying in front and 1/3 behind. The tongue is a mobile organ with taste buds and papillae, special sensory organs, present on its surface function. The tongue is helpful in mastication, chewing, swallowing and speech. It is the organ of taste and the nerve endings of the sense taste are present in the papillae. Teeth. There are 16 each jaw, teeth arranged in curved form in the mouth and are fixed in their sockets in the upper jaw and lower jaw. The front ones are useful for biting and cutting, the rear ones are for grinding. Salivary glands. There are 3 pairs of salivary glands. They are 2 parotid, 2 submandibular or submaxillary and 2 sublingual. Their ducts open inside the oral cavity of the mouth. Parotid glands. These are situated one on each side of the face just below the external acanthic meatus. Each gland has a parotid duct opening into the mouth at the level of the second upper molar tooth. Submandibular glands. These are present on each side of the face under angle of the jaw. The two submandibular ducts open onto the floor of the mouth, one on each side of the frenulum of the tongue. Sublingual glands. These glands lie under the mucous membrane of the floor of the mouth in front of the submandibular glands. The salivary glands are surrounded by a fibrous capsule. These consist of number of lobules, made of small alveoli lined with secretory cells. The secretions are poured into small ducts which join to form larger ducts leading into mouth. Saliva is the combined secretion of salivary glands and the small mucus-secreting glands of the lining of oral cavity. It consists of water, mineral salts, enzyme ptyalin and mucus. Pharynx. It is tubal space between the mouth and the esophagus, subdivided into three parts. 1. Nasopharynx. 2. Oropharynx. 3. Laryngopharynx. Food passes from the oral cavity to the pharynx, then to the esophagus. The esophagus. It is long hollow tube 25 cm in length and opens into the stomach. Food passes from the pharynx into the esophagus to be finally pushed into stomach. The stomach. It is a J-shaped dilated portion of the alimentary tract situated in the epigastric, umbilical and left hypochondriac regions of the abdominal cavity. It stores food and partially digests it biochemically by its gastric juice secretion. It also mechanically digests the food by contraction of gastric muscle. It has two surfaces, anterior and posterior, two curves, the lesser and the greater curvatures, and two orifices controlled by the cardiac sphincter above and pyloric sphincter below. Upper part of the stomach above the level of the cardiac sphincter is called fundus. The part below the level of the cardiac notch is called the body. Portion below the incisura angularis forms the pylorus. Stomach is a multilayered hollow organ with three muscular coats. 1. Outer layer of longitudinal fiber. 2. Middle layer of circular fiber. 3. Inner layer of oblique fibers. They are responsible for muscular contraction which churns the food. The small intestine. It is continuous with the stomach pyloric sphincter and opens into large intestine. In small intestine, the chemical digestion of food is completed and most of the absorption of nutrient take place. It is divided into three parts, duodenum. It is thus inches in length and curves in C shape around the head of pancreas. Jejunum. It is the middle part of small intestine which is about 6.5 feet long. Ileum. It is the terminal part about 10 feet long and ends at the ileocacal valve which controls the flow of food material from ileum to the large intestine and vice versa. Large intestine or colon, rectum and anal canal. The large intestine is 5 feet long beginning at the cacum in the right iliac fossa and terminating at the rectum and anal canal in the pelvis. Its lumen is larger than that of the small intestine. It forms an arch round the coiled-up small intestine. The colon is divided into cacum, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon. Pelvic colon, rectum and anal canal. Rectum. It is straight and lies centrally in the true pelvis starting from the sigmoid colon and ending in the anal canal which opens externally. In the male, the rectum lies behind the urinary bladder, prostate and seminal vesicles. In the female, it lies behind the uterus and vagina. Anal canal. The rectum end is the anus which is a small canal guarded by two sphincters. The internal sphincter is involuntary and the external sphincter is voluntary. It gives sensation and dilates during defecation and then it again contracts. The respiratory system. Body need energy for their chemical activity that maintain homeostatic balance. Most of this energy is derived from chemical reactions which can only take place in the presence of. The main waste product of these reactions is carbon dioxide. The respiratory system provides the route by which the supply of oxygen present in the atmosphere air gets entry in the body and it provides the route of excretion of carbon dioxide. The organs of the respiratory system are nose, 6. Pharynx, E. Larynx, D. Trachea, E. Bronchi, bronchioles and smaller air passages, 0. Lungs, G. Muscles of respiratory intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. Nose. The nasal cavity is the initial organ of respiratory system and consists of large irregular cavity divided by a septum into two equal parts. The nose is lined with very vascular ciliated columnar epithelium which contains mucus-secreting globate cells. Functions. Ache. It is the first respiratory passages through which incoming air passes. The function of the nose is to begin the process by which the air is warmed, moistened and filtered. Though it is the organ of the sense of smell, there are nerve endings that detect smell, located in the roof of the nose. These nerve endings are stimulated by chemical substances which are given off by odorous materials. The resultant nerve impulses are conveyed by the olfactory nerves to the brain where the sensation of smell is perceived. Functions. It is an organ involved in both the respiratory and the digestive system. Air passes through the nasal and oral parts and food through the oral and laryngeal parts. Though the auditory tube, extending from the nasal part to each middle ear, allows air to enter the middle ear. Satisfactory hearing depends on the presence of air at atmospheric pressure on each side of the tympanic member. 3. The lymphatic tissue in the pharyngeal and laryngeal tonsils produces antibodies in response to antigens. Larynx. The larynx, or voice box, extends from the root of the tongue and the hyoid bone to the trachea. It lies in front of the laryngeal part of the pharynx at the level of 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th cervical vertebra. It is composed of several irregularly shaped cartilage attached to each other by ligaments. The main cartilages are hyaline cartilages and epiglottis. Functions. Ache. It provides passageway for air between the pharynx and trachea. Though the vocal cords produce sounds of varying loudness and pitch. 3. During swallowing, the larynx moves upwards, occluding the opening into it from the pharynx. This ensures that food passes into the esophagus and not into the lower respiratory passages. Trachea. The trachea or windpipe is a continuation of the larynx and extends to about the level of 5th thoracic vertebra where it divides into the right and left bronchi. Trachea is composed of solar to base incomplete rings of hyaline cartilage. Connective tissue and involuntary muscle join the cartilages and form the posterior wall where they are incomplete. There are 3 layers of tissue which clothe the cartilage of the trachea. The outer layer consists of fibrous and elastic tissue and encloses the cartilages. The middle layer consists of cartilages and bands of smooth muscles. There is some areolar tissue, containing blood and lymph vessels and autonomic nerves. The inner lining consists of ciliated columnar epithelium containing mucus-secreting globate cells. The arrangement of cartilage and clastic tissue prevents obstruction of the airway as the head and neck move. Bronchi and smaller air passages. The 2 bronchi are formed when the trachea divides about the level of the 5th thoracic vertebra. The right bronchus is a wider, shorter tube than the left bronchus. After entering the right lung at the hilum, it divides into 3 bronchus, 1 passes to each lobe. The left bronchus after entering in the lung divides into 2 branches, 1 passes to each lobe. The bronchi are composed of the same tissue as the trachea. It is subdivided into bronchioles, terminal bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts and alveoli. Functions. Ache. The cartilages in the larger air passages keep them open, allowing for the unobstructed passage of air. Though the mucus which coats the lining membrane is of sticky consistency to which particles in the air adhere, preventing them from reaching the alveoli, e.g., dust. 3. The diameter of the respiratory passages may be altered by contraction or relaxation of the involuntary muscle in their walls, thus regulating the volume of air entering the lungs. These changes are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Parasympathetic stimulation constricts the air passages and sympathetic stimulation dilates them. 4. Cells in connective tissue protect against infection and inhaled foreign particles not trapped by mucus. 5. Inspired air is warmed to body temperature by contact with walls of the air passages. 6. Inhaled air, not already saturated with water vapor, takes up moisture from surface mucous lungs. There are 2 lungs, one lying on each side of the midline in the thoracic cavity. They are cone-shaped and are having apex, base, costal surface and medial surface. The apex is rounded and rises into the root of the neck about 25 mm. The base is concave, associated with the thoracic surface of the diaphragm. The costal surface is convex and the medial surface is concave. The structures entering and leaving the lungs are bronchus, pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins. Bronchial artery, bronchial vein. lymph vessels, parasympathetic and sympathetic nerves. The area between the lungs is the mediastinum, occupied by the heart, great vessels, tracheae, right and left bronchus, esophagus, lymph nodes, lymph vessels and nerves. The lungs are covered with pleura comprising the visceral pleura and parietal pleura. The right lung is divided into three distinct lobes: superior, middle and inferior. The urinary system. The urinary system is one of the excretory system of the body. It consists of following structures: kidney which form urine, ureters which carry the urine from kidney to bladder, urinary bladder for storage of urine and urethra through which urine is discharged. The urinary system plays a vital part in maintaining water and electrolyte balance in the kidney is main excretory organ. It is composed of large number of microscopic structures called nephrons. They are described as fundamental units. Nephron consists of a tubule, closed at one end. The other end opens into collecting embule. The closed end is present in the form of cup-shaped structure called glomerular capsule, which contain network of arterial capillaries called glomerulus. Continuing from the glomerular capsule, the remainder of the nephron described in three parts: the proximal convoluted tubule, the loop of Henle's and the distal convoluted tubule which leads into collecting tubulae. Nephrons carry out three important functions. 1. They control blood concentration and volume by removing selected amounts of water and solutes. 2. They regulate blood pH. 3. They remove waste products from the blood, the ones that body required, and excrete the remainder. The excreted fluid is called urine. Urine, as the nephron performs these activities, they remove many materials from the blood. Return formation involves three principal processes: filtration, reabsorption and secretion. Filtration is the job of the renal corpuscle. Reabsorption and secretion occur all along the renal tubule. 8. Glomerular filtration. The first step in the production of urine is called glomerular filtration. The principle of filtration, the forcing of the fluids and dissolved substances through a membrane by pressure, is the same in glomerular capillaries as in capillaries elsewhere in the body. It occurs in the renal corpuscle of the kidneys across the endothelial capsular membranes. Blood pressure forces water and dissolved blood components through the endothelial fenestrations of the capillaries, basement membrane, and on through the filtration slits of the adjoining visceral walls of the glomerular capsule. The resulting fluid is called the filtrate. Roughly 180 liters of filtrate enter the capsular spaces each day. This represents about 60 times the blood plasma volume. About 178-179 liters return to the bloodstream by reabsorption in the renal tubules, so only 1-2 liters are excreted as urine. In a healthy person, filtrate contains all the materials present in the blood except the formed elements and most proteins which are too large to pass through the endothelial capsular membranes. Several undimensioned structural features of the renal corpuscles enhance their blood filtering capacity. 8. Glomerular capillaries are long. Though the filter, i.e. the endothelial capsular membrane, is porous and thin. 3. Capillary blood pressure is high. In the glomerulus, blood filtering depends upon three main pressures. 8. Glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure, GBHP. Though capsular hydrostatic pressure, CHP. 3. Blood colloid osmotic pressure, BCOP. To determine the net filtration pressure, NFP, the forces that oppose filtration are subtracted from the glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure. NFP equals GBHP, chap jod BCOP. Filtration. Promote oppose NFP, 60 mmHg, 15 mmHg jod 27 mmHg, equals 60 mmHg 42 mmHg equals 18 mmHg. This means that a pressure of about 18 mmHg causes a normal amount of plasma, excluding plasma proteins, to filter from the glomerulus into the capsular space. Tubular reabsorption. As the filtrate passes through the renal tubules, about 99% of it is reabsorbed, returned to the blood. Thus only about 1% of the filtrate leaves the body as urine, about 1.5 liters a day. The movement of water and solutes back into the blood is called tubular reabsorption. Solutes that are reabsorbed by both active and passive processes include glucose, amino acids, and icons such as Na, K, K, C, HCO3, and HPO. Water reabsorption occurs by the passive process of osmosis. Any small proteins and peptides that have passed the filter also are reabsorbed. Epithelial cells all along the renal tubule carry out tubular reabsorption. The proximal convoluted tubules, where the epithelial cells feature many microvilli to increase the surface area for reabsorption, make the largest contribution. Moreover, distal portion of the nephron are also responsible for final reabsorption process to maintain homeostatic balances. Tubular reabsorption returns nutrients to the body. Wastes such as urea are only partially reabsorbed. Tubular secretion. The third process involved in urine formation is tubular secretion. Tubu. Absorption returns substances from the filtrate into the blood, whereas tubular secretion removes materials from the blood and adds them to the filtrate. These secreted substances include potassium, K, hydrogen ions, H, ammonium ions, NH, creatinine, and the drugs para-aminopuric acid. Tubular secretion has two principal effects. It helps the body in removing certain and so helps to control blood pH. The endocrine system. The endocrine system consists of glands widely separated from each other with no direct atomical links. These are commonly referred to as the ductless glands because their secreted hormones are passed directly into the bloodstream. Hormones influence activity, growth, nutrition in urge organ or tissue. Some of the endocrine glands present in our body are thyroid, pituitary, adrenal, pancreas and parathyroid glands. I. Thyroid glands. It is a single gland but largest endocrine gland. Thyroid gland is situated at the lower part of neck. It consists of two lobes, one on either day of trachea, joined together by a median part called isthmus. Structurally, thyroid gland is enveloped by a fibrous capsule. A thin septa divides the gland to number of lobules, which in turn is divided into follicles. These follicles contain dense network of capillaries and parafollicular or C cells which synthesize hormone calcitonin. Functions of thyroid hormones. It synthesizes hormones thyroxine and triiodothyronin with the help of iodine. These hormones are stored in the form of thyroglobin and released into the bloodstream as required. Ache. It affects the oxygen consumption in cells except brain, retina, spleen, lymph nodes, thus regulates heat production and energy liberation or basic metabolic rate, BMR. 2. It is required for conversion of carotene to vitamin A in liver cells and synthesis of prolactin and growth hormones. 3. The hormone, thyroxine enhance glucose absorption in intestine, glycogenolysis, deamination and gluconeogenesis in liver cells, glucose utilization, protein synthesis, rate of heartbeat, body temperature, dissociation of oxygen from hemoglobin. 4. It control excitability of nerve. Hypothyroidism. It occurs due to deficiency of thyroid hormone. It is called creatinism in myxedema, children and myxedema in adults. In creatinism, growth of child is reduced, BMR is low and there is dry flaky skin, purplish,